Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Nicole, and I like to come on here once a week and just share whatever messages of guidance I have been called to share from the Most High intuitively. And so today, not so much using the cards, but when I was tuning into what to talk about in today's video, the message that came through was really talking about all of the things that have been normalized that are totally not normal. And so we are living at a time of great transition in society. We are living through a time of great change. I heard recently that we are going through, I think it was called the digital age. So how we had the Industrial Revolution, and so now we are essentially living through the digital revolution. And this is especially the case with the developments of AI and all the new technology that we see taking place, which, just like when the internet was invented, no one could really foresee how that would change the way the world is. And so really, right now is where, as everyone is talking about all these new types of AI and all the new technology that is being developed, I can certainly say that we are not at all heading in the right direction. Because, we talk about the fact that the world is better than it's ever been before, and that we are more advanced and we are more developed, and that we should continue to be developing and we should continue to be expanding. But when you stop to question and when you stop to really pay attention to the state of the world as it is today, I don't think we can say that all this development and all this advancement has been beneficial for the world, and definitely not so for humanity. Because when I look at the state of humanity today, I mean, for me who's only in my 30s, I can definitely say that life was better when I was younger. Life was different. If we look at if we look at it from a humanitarian perspective, I think it's safe to say that people were happier, people were healthier, there was more connection. And even though now we are supposedly more connected than we've ever been before because of the internet and all the new technology that exists, I beg to differ, because I don't think that we are more developed and, more connected than we've been before. In that, really, how often is it when I go out to like a cafe or a restaurant or whatever it might be, and I look around me at all the people who are there, and how the majority of people are always, just on their phones. People don't know how to communicate with each other. People don't know how to connect with one another. And, I really think about the younger generations, and I was watching a documentary not so long ago about, the addiction to social media, and how it is the younger generations that are way more addicted to social media than the older generations, because, well, they've never known a world without social media. They don't know how to be without their phones, and the way we interact, since technology has come into existence, is totally different to the way we used to interact prior to technology. When I think back to what were people doing all the time when we didn't have phones and we didn't have all of these computers. I mean, nowadays it seems that most people, what they do in their spare time is that they're watching something on their phones. But what did people used to do before? I mean, when I think about my childhood, how often was I just bored shitless and always complaining to my parents, oh, I'm so bored, and they'd say, oh, go and play outside in the garden. And and we didn't have many toys when we were growing up, and so I would find myself playing all kinds of games in the garden with my imaginary friends, and climbing trees, and making magical potions with flowers, or making sort of castles out of the boxes that we would use to ship our flowers. And nowadays, children can't even be outside. Children can't even, and that's part of, part of learning is that when we were children and we would be doing these things and, having to use our imagination and our creativity to keep ourselves amused and occupied, those parts of the brain are not really being used by children today, because all they're doing is stuck indoors on their phones, on their computers, on their tablets, or whatever it is. And I find that, when you look at the state of where children are today, I find it very, very worrying for future generations to come. There's something that's going around called brain rot, whereby the content that a lot of these younger generations are watching is literally rotting their brains, because it's just absolute nonsense. And even when you think about all the cartoons and the TV shows and all the stuff that children are watching today, there's way too much stimulation. And this is why children are, most parents will say, oh yeah, children are not well behaved. And that's actually because of the content that they're consuming, which is literally creating negative neural pathways in their brain, that it's literally making people stupid, and it's often that I like to watch these videos about, just how stupid the state of the world is, because I find it really crazy that we're all walking around with these, mini computers in our phones where we have access to all the information that we need, and yet people are stupider than ever before, and that is really, really worrying. And yes, we can sort of put it down to the education system for becoming dumber and dumber, which I think is certainly the case, but something is going on in the world which is just really not making sense. And I think what is happening now is that everyone is just kind of going along with it, because this is what is accepted. This is part of, the culture of the world. And because we are now living in a world where we have globalized culture, things are being normalized in a way that are just not normal, and people just go along with it because the majority of people are doing these things, but it's just not normal. And so some of you might think that the things that I'm going to say today are totally normal, but when you break it down to the simplest terms of asking, are we really heading in the right direction as humanity? I think it is safe to say no, and especially since 2020, the world is just batshit fucking crazy. And now this is probably going to annoy a few people as I say this, but a lot of what is happening right now is being engineered. A lot of the way society has developed over, decades has been engineered. I was recently watching a video yesterday about something called Laurel Canyon, which was some place in Los Angeles, where they were essentially saying that all the major rock stars that came out in the 1960s and during that whole hippie era movement was actually a CIA psyop. That, when you talk to sort of more religious people, a lot of people were saying during the time of the 60s, when a lot of this music was coming out, was that this was the devil's music. And, a lot of people were saying, oh no, that's nonsense. And just when we look through how society has developed over the years, and how it's been a very slow, gradual development towards things that are just absolutely not normal, and how they have been engineered so that society develops in a certain way. And you can go and do your own research. There's an institute called the Tavistock Institute, which I've mentioned in some of my previous videos. And some people will say that these are conspiracy theories, and that's absolutely fine. You can really just believe whatever it is that you want to believe, where this institute basically engineered a lot of the hippie movement. And why the hippie movement was engineered was because there was a movement at the time, especially in America, which was an anti-war movement. But in order to kind of and because that movement was starting to gain traction, essentially what happened was, it needed to be nipped in the bud so that this movement wouldn't take on too much power and stop all the warring efforts that were taking place at the time. And so what happened is that sort of the hippie movement was created as a psyop by the CIA in order to stop this war, this anti-war movement from building traction. And so we saw a lot of sort of famous musicians that started to become popular, such as like the Beatles. And this was all linked to developing a movement that was, when you, sorry, I might jump around a lot here. I have so many thoughts going on through my mind. So if you think about what was the state of the world, like let's say in the 1950s, where people said that things were very, there was no freedom and there was a lot of rules and women were, sitting at home as mothers and working in the household and they had no freedom. But if you think about it, people were happier in the 50s in that the family unit was stronger, women were not so promiscuous, people were not having sex unless they were married. And some people might think that that's, too limited. But if we look at how this has affected society and the fact that today, people use sex just like it's as easy as going to have, a drink. It's like all these platforms such as Tinder and I don't know what the other names are, but where now essentially people are on these platforms literally just to go and have sex with random strangers, completely forgetting the fact that sex is a spiritual experience, and sex really means sacred energy exchange, whereby in way back when, people would only have sex if they were married because there had to be some kind of commitment. Because when we are engaging in the sexual act, what happens is that your energy really fuses with the person that you are engaging in sex with. And this is why all kinds of weird attachment starts to happen. But not only are you taking on the energy of that person, which means whatever negative energies that they are holding within them, you start to absorb those energies within yourself. And unless you start to really pay attention and question how are these things affecting me, we just think that they're not really affecting us. But that's the point of having consciousness and self-awareness, is unless we stop to question how these things are affecting us individually but also affecting us as a society, we really just think that it's okay, but it's really not okay. I mean, if we just look at the relationship between men and women today, and when you look at all this content that is happening about how essentially we're getting to a point where it seems like men and women are hating each other more than ever, and yet we need one another. But all these, if we're just giving sex away for free, essentially, without any kind of commitment from our partners, this is degrading the man-woman relationship and starting to affect, the family structure. Because what has been engineered all this time is really the breaking apart of the nuclear family, which is what we're seeing today. Families are not as tight-knit and connected as they used to be before. And this is the thing, is that if you are not, at least if you don't have family, if you don't have someone looking out for you, if you don't have someone protecting you, then what happens is that you are isolated, and it is easier for, kind of like fucked up shit to happen to you. Because if you don't have people looking out for you, and this is the case, this is the problem, is that, especially when I compare like families in Europe and let's say in Africa, it's just totally different. Like when you look at, say, the older generation, how all these people are just being cast away and put into old people homes, and there's no respect, and people in the Western world seem to look down on the elderly and look at them as being a burden and look at them as being annoying, and how even though you were raised by these people, but once you get older, you're like, oh, well, it's not my problem anymore. I'm just going to chuck them into an old people's care home. And as a result of that, you just have a whole bunch of deeply, deeply depressed and unhappy older people. And yet the older people have so much information to share with us. We have so much to learn from the older generation. And at the complete opposite side of the spectrum on the African continent, where the elderly are very much respected, and the younger generations look after their elderly parents, and they're not just cast away and chucked into these elderly care homes, but are actually brought into the family and looked after. And so really, for me, who is half European, half African, it's always been a very interesting experience for me to try and comprehend, what part of me is is the way it is because of my African heritage, as opposed to what part of me is the way it is as a result of my European heritage. And it is very easy to see some of these aspects because, well, in a sense, the globalization of culture and the Western ideologies, which I have seen being imposed here in Kenya for many years. Because when I look at how the fact that in the early 90s here in Kenya, women didn't wear trousers, and that was totally normal. And you fast forwarded into, I don't know when it was exactly, and then suddenly now all women are wearing trousers. Or how you would drive around to the village or in the middle of nowhere, and you would see a lot of people wearing their traditional dress, as opposed to today, where the only people who still wear their traditional dress are the Maasai. And so you can see how how sort of individual cultures have been totally wiped out as a result of this Western ideology, as the result of this global culture and global way of life that is being pushed across the globe to all countries. And as a result of this global culture which is being pushed on all of these different countries, what is happening is that the culture of these individual countries is being totally eroded. And what happens when culture is eroded? Well, what happens is that we lose sight of who we are. We forget who we are because we're trying to be somebody else who we are not. And so as a result of that, we're eradicating our history. And yet history plays such an important part of our present and our future, because when we know our history, it is easier for us to remember where we went wrong and to avoid making those same mistakes moving forward. But what is happening now, and as a result of the way society has been engineered, and people might not think that to be true, but I'm somebody who's gone down a lot of rabbit holes and has done a lot of research about a lot of things that people call conspiracy theories. And really, rather than using the word conspiracy theory, I'm actually going to use the word fact checking, because it seems that because that is what, people who are dubbed conspiracy theorists, they check the facts, and they might not check all the mainstream media facts, but we have to remember that mainstream media is owned by a select few individuals and corporations. And really, the fact that we live in a capitalist society where what is driving the world today is money. But money, people have, it's just absolutely crazy what has happened to our society as a result of money. The things that people are willing to do in order to get money. And this is the problem, because there are just so many things that people are willing today. There is a lot that is being talked about, the illegal movement of human beings. I'm going to speak a little bit in code here because there are certain words that I can't use. And so as there is so much new information that is coming to light about the fact that the illegal movement of human beings, and especially children, is the biggest industry in the world today, and that the people at the highest level of our society are the ones who are basically involved in this movement. That the people that we worship as celebrities, who we think are all innocent and great, and who people have been worshipping since God knows how long, which is something which I've really never understood, as to how somebody can be so obsessed with a person that they've never met before. And only now, finally, the information is beginning to come out to show people that these people are not who we think they are. Remember, these people are actors. And coming back to what I was talking about, this Laurel Canyon and it being a CIA psyop, to a lot of these rock stars back in the day, their parents were connected to the military industrial complex. And so there are just too many, and even today there are certain celebrities whose parents are connected to the military industrial complex. And so all these people who we worship and we look up to, and who, you know, were like, oh, we love their music and all of these things. It's only to be found out, and more of this information is going to continue to come to light. And I've spoken about it in previous videos, whereby a lot of these artists are engaging in witchcraft and black magic. And you know, this is why music has played such a massive role in the indoctrination of, you know, many people, because what most people don't pay attention to is the wording that is being used in a lot of music. And wording combined with certain sounds actually has the ability to hypnotize people, or to put them in a state of into a state of consciousness where it is easier for them to be manipulated, and for sort of thoughts to be implanted into their minds. And so what most people don't realize when they're listening to all this popular music is that they are actually being hypnotized to a certain degree. And the same goes for the mainstream media. The same goes for a lot of, you know, when you look at Netflix, for example, and that, you know, Netflix is another psyop, which is used essentially because the fact that the whole world is watching the same programs. Just think about it that way. You know, we are being programmed. Human beings are essentially like computers. You know, computers have been modeled after human beings. AI is being modeled over what human beings know. And so the fact that, you know, we have been programmed to look at the world a specific way, and as a result of that, the fact that we are all watching the same programs, is that we start to have the same beliefs. And what is crazy about, you know, the fact that within Hollywood, there are a lot of CIA operatives that essentially decide what kind of movies are made. It's because these are massive psyops that are being done, and that have been done for, you know, decades, about how to manipulate the way people look at the world and the way people engage in the world and the behavior that we develop. And a lot of the behavior that human beings have developed over the course of history has been a result of, you know, the people that we supposedly worship, such as the musicians and the TV shows and the movies and the kind of music. Because when we look at how women behaved in the 50s versus how women behave today, and yes, we can talk about, you know, that there has been more and more freedom that has come into play for women, and that it's our body, our choice. But yes, it is our body, our choice. But do I believe that we should all be walking around half naked? Absolutely not. The fact that women have become so sexualized, and not only women, the fact that everything has become so sexualized, and that we can't really talk about it. There are still things that have to be sort of PC. And this is the problem. Women have become so promiscuous because this is what we saw on TV, and this is what we saw the musicians doing. And so as a result, we started, you know, mimicking that behavior. And slowly, you know, it starts off with, oh, okay, we're showing a shoulder, then we're showing the knees, and then the skirts get shorter. And then, you know, when you look at, for example, swimming costumes, and the way they used to be in like the 1950s versus swimming costumes today. I mean, today for me, who lives here at the beach, and when I walk around and I see all these women wearing G-string bikinis, I just don't understand it. And again, you know, not to say that, you know, and this, I'm sorry, this is probably going to trigger a lot of people as I say this, but you know, when they say that women, you know, women who are, you know, forcefully molested in a sexual manner by men, you know, they say that it's because of the way the women were dressed. Well, not to say that that is true, but there is some portion of truth in that, because if you're scantily clad, you're literally attracting attention to yourself. And there are women who dress so provocatively and then wonder why they get all this male attention and they feel uncomfortable about it. But the way you're dressed is literally saying, look at me, I want to be used as a sexual idol. I want to be used as a sexual symbol. And that is the problem, is that people do things and they don't question the consequences of their actions. They're just doing things because that is what is being done. And I think it is absolutely unacceptable for women to be dressing the way they do. And we need to have some level of self-respect. But I'm sorry, when you're walking around half naked in a G-string bikini, that's not respectful for yourself as a woman in any way. And so when, you know, mothers are allowing their daughters to dress scantily, then that's a problem. And just because everyone else is doing it, you know, doesn't mean that it makes it acceptable and it's the right thing to do. But this is where now we're living in a world where we're all part of some hive mind, that it seems that people can no longer think individually for themselves. And those people who do think individually and question the narrative and question what is being done and go beyond what is being presented to them at face value, well, these are the people who are dubbed conspiracy theorists. But I would say those are the people who are the fact checkers, because I remember when I was in university and I was told, whenever you have an argument about anything, you have to have a backing. And so we were told, oh, okay, yeah, there are certain sources that are more acceptable than others. But then that leads you to question, who decides what is a reliable source? Because in today's world where pretty much all of us are getting our information from Google, then we've been told that Google, you know, is an appropriate source of information. But we all know that there is mass censoring that is happening on Google, and that we're only getting very limited results, and that we're only getting a very small portion of the information. And nowadays it seems that, you know, whenever you Google anything, the main people who seem to come up are the UN or the government. And I'm sorry, but these cannot be the only people in the world that have done research and have the right information. And so right now, we also have to question where we're getting our information from. What are the sources? And some people will say, oh yeah, but that's not an acceptable source. But if someone is giving their first-hand experience about something that has happened, can you really say that that is not a reliable source? And that is what is happening today, where people are sharing their first-hand experiences about a lot of things, and people are questioning them, and people are putting their character into question, and so many people are being cancelled because they're coming out and they're sharing information about things that have the less popular opinion. And so people are saying that, you know, that is not reliable information. But I think we have to stop for a second and just question for ourselves, because we have reached a point in society where we have lost our way. We have lost our morals. And that is the problem, is that things that were once considered unacceptable and just not right are today totally 100% normal. And yet they're not normal if you stop to question what is normal. There are so many things that are not normal. So for example, we look at, you know, addiction, and how, again, I talk about this often because it is crazy to me how many people are battling with addiction, but when you tell them you are addicted to this, they will say, no, I'm not. But they are. But because these things have been normalized, you know, when I look at Kenya today, at this point in time, there is a serious pandemic of drugs that is happening. But because nowadays everyone is so used to sniffing cocaine, it's become normalized. But it's not normal for people to not be able to go out and enjoy an evening with their friend without getting completely fucked. And this is the problem. And you know, for me, who decided to get out of that life because it was just, I decided that that was just really not the life that I wanted to continue living. And also it was the life that I was living because I was deeply depressed and hated myself. And so the thing is, you know, when you look at addiction, is, you know, the reason why people are engaging in so many substances today is because people are deeply, deeply unhappy. People don't know how to cope. And the reason for that is people have disconnected from their souls. People are lacking a spiritual connection. People are lacking deep connections with other human beings. Most relationships that people have are so surface and so shallow and so fake. You know, it's crazy how so many people will talk shit about their friends behind their back, or talk shit about their families behind their back, and not engage in those conversations directly with each other. And so many things that we are doing today, you know, the fact that every weekend people have to go out and get shit-faced because they don't know how else to interact with human beings. They don't know how else to interact with one another. The fact that we are literally living through a mental health global epidemic. Also, most people are depressed, most people are unhappy. The number, you know, the number of people who are putting an end to their lives is increasing the world over. And the thing is, for you to get to the point to actually end your world, you know, you have to be in a pretty dire situation, in a pretty unhappy situation, in a situation where you really just can't go on with life as it is. You know, for me, who wanted to end my life, you know, who literally just wanted to die my entire life up until a few years ago, you know, I never had the balls to do it because I was like, I definitely can't leave my sister behind, or, you know, she's going to end her life. And well, we know that spiritually, by putting an end to your life, well, you basically are just going to come back here and have to start this process all over again. And so some of you might not believe in the concepts of reincarnation, but I do. And I really do, because I have actually even remembered past lives that I have had on this planet as well as other planets. But, you know, that is something that we can get into in another video. But the fact that, you know, people are mistaking spirituality and religion, because religion is a man-made concept. But the fact that way back when we look back to ancient civilizations that were way more advanced than we are, the difference between them is that they all had a spiritual practice. They all had a higher level of consciousness. They had a higher level of self-awareness. And that is what we are lacking today. Most people totally lack the ability to look at themselves and say, how am I the problem in the situation that I'm complaining about? Because 99.9% of the problems that you are experiencing in your life is a result of you, is a result of your beliefs, is a result of your thoughts, is a result of your behaviors and your actions. But most people won't stop and take a look at their lives and question, how have I gone wrong? What have I done to actually bring about the situation that I'm trying to get out of? And that is what is happening now, is that everything that is happening right now, it's like everything is being amplified so that we are forced to see that the direction that we are heading in is not positive. Yes, we can say that the internet brought about many positive changes, but now when we're going down this road of AI, you know, how many people have lost their jobs already as a result of AI? These are things that people are not talking about today. And here we are talking about AI and how it's the best thing since sliced bread, but yet more and more people are having difficulties because of AI. I mean, think about it this way. I'm somebody who absolutely hates technology. I'll just put it bluntly. You know, I'm so untech savvy, and I'm probably, you know, like an 80-year-old woman in terms of the way I don't like technology and have so much difficulty, and how so many times when I'm using an app or doing something online and it doesn't work, and I just really wish that I could call somebody and talk to them and ask them a question. But how many times are you redirected to some AI bot and you just can't seem to get a straight answer? And this is the problem. At least back in the day, you could call a human being and the human being would help you, and they would have compassion, and they would be able to listen to you, and they would be able to say, okay, I'm going to help you. But try doing that with an AI bot. Yeah, you're going to get absolutely nowhere. And this thing is that this AI now, it's like, you know, how many people, I was listening to a video earlier this morning about how more and more men, and this was, you know, more so in America, but also probably Europe and Asia, is that more and more men, because of the disconnection and because of all of this, you know, rivalry that is happening between, you know, men and women, is that there are so many just weird people out there, and how there are so many people, and especially men now, who are having difficulties getting into real relationships with women. And so now they're engaging in relationships with like women AI robots. And just how disturbing is that, you know, we're more connected, yeah, we're more connected with technology and machinery than we are with human beings. And this is why so many people are unhappy and disconnected, because we don't know how to genuinely connect with other human beings anymore. We don't know how to be vulnerable. We're scared of being authentic because we're so scared of being cancelled. And again, it's like all these people who, you know, what social media, the rise of social media has created all these like false lifestyles that people want to engage in, and yet it's pushing consumerism. But how many people are really happy? You know, how many people are really happy? And that's the thing, is it's creating more of a divide between men and women, you know, especially since the rise of feminism. And I wouldn't call myself a feminist in in regards to the way the feminist movement is moving today, because when I look at the feminist movement that is developing today, it's really more about bashing men. And you know, really, I love men because men are wonderful and we need men. But the thing is, because of all this hating on men, well, men are, and not to say that men are not, you know, they don't have their faults. We all have our faults. But this is what, you know, and again, when we see the over-sexualization of women and the rise of the porn industry and how this has totally degraded women, and that the younger generations have been learning all about sex through porn, and how this is why the role of the woman has come to be the way it is today, and how, you know, women are looked down, and of course I'm generalizing here, but women are looked down upon because it's always about, you know, what can the woman bring to the table? And yet the woman brings so much, but the woman brings something that is non-tangible. And so, you know, there is just so much misunderstanding about the male, you know, the man-woman relationship. And this is why so many people are unhappy, and why you see more and more women choosing to be single, and also more and more men choosing to be single, because we have totally misunderstood the roles that we play within, you know, relationships with each other. And so as a result of that, those relationships are falling apart, because, well, it all comes down to the over-sexualization of society. And, you know, again, coming back to the whole AI, and this is slowly opening the door towards the you know, the what is the word I'm looking for, when it's you know, half human, half machine. And how, you know, it starts off with someone putting a chip in their hand so that they can pay for their groceries just by swiping their hand. And it's like, how complicated is it for you to just take your credit card out of your wallet and swipe your credit card? Do you really need to put a chip inside your hand? You know, it's all becoming crazy. And because, you know, there are all these movies that talk about how cool it is to be a cyborg, it's like, is it really cool to be a cyborg? Because essentially you're putting a chip inside your hand to pay for your groceries, and then eventually, well, now with all this, you know, all this technology that is being put in place, well, eventually now you have a chip in your body. Who's to say that you won't be able to be controlled by some external source now? Because you literally have machinery within your body that can be hacked into by a computer. So again, slowly taking away our free will, because I think it's safe to say that we are living in a world where we have very limited amount of free will. We are not really free to choose whatever it is that we're you know, we're not free to choose what it is that we truly desire, because there are so many rules. And it's just like, for example, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, you know, how many people get stopped on the road because they're driving without insurance, right? It's like, why does the government get involved in whether we have insurance or not? It's like, you own your car. If you get into an accident and, you know, you fuck up your car and you have no insurance, well, the only person that's really going to cause a problem to is you. Because if you don't have the money to pay for that insurance, to pay for your car to get fixed, then, you know, how is that affecting the government? Really, it's not. But somehow the government will get involved and say, oh, well, you don't have insurance. How is you not having insurance affecting anybody else but yourself? It's like, you know, how many times do the cops stop people here because they're driving without helmets on their motorbikes? Again, how is that affecting the government? How is that affecting other people? If you fall off your motorbike and you don't have a helmet, the only person that that's affecting is you. And so the government will say, oh yeah, it's because we have your safety in mind. But that's fucking bullshit, because the government is, you know, willing to inject newborn children with God knows how many vaccines that are totally not necessary at those ages. But yet the government will come and say, oh, you know, you'll pay a hefty fine if you're not wearing a helmet. So again, we have to start to question. Don't just accept things as they are. Don't just accept things because that's what everyone else is doing, but start to question what makes sense for you. Is it bettering your life? Is it improving your relationship? Is it making you happier? And not because you've been told that it's going to make you happy, because this is what consumerism is all about. Buy this product and you'll be happier. Buy this and you'll be happier. Buy this and your life will be transformed. It's like with the transgender movement, you know, what they're not showing you is how many people regret it, how many people are actually being coerced, because so many people are already in a vulnerable state. And especially we're talking about younger people, younger children who haven't yet fully developed their brain, who haven't yet fully understood life. I mean, even as adults, we haven't yet fully comprehended life. And yet, if someone is telling you, you know, if you're unhappy and don't feel good in your body, and someone is constantly telling you you'll feel better if you change your gender, of course, if you're already vulnerable and in a place where you feel shit about yourself, well, of course you're going to start to question that. And of course you're going to start to think, well, maybe there's truth in that, because you become so desperate when you're in these states of, you know, discomfort and unhappiness in your life, that you're willing to believe anything that someone says to you. And especially if it's a doctor, that someone, you know, people, there were tests that were done that showed people were more likely to believe people who were in positions of power. So anyone who wears a uniform, you're more likely to believe them because you think that these people have your best intentions at heart. But if a doctor is telling you changing your gender is going to make you feel better, of course you're going to believe that person, because you're like, this is a doctor who studied and who knows a lot more about health and mental health and all of these things than I possibly do. Of course I'm going to believe that person. But it's interesting to know that a lot of the organizations that are pushing these gender changing, you know, nonsense are NGOs. And you know, I was chatting to a lady not so long ago in Nairobi who was telling me that these NGOs are the ones that are pushing these agendas here in Kenya. And I find that very, very disturbing, because, you know, and especially the fact that here in Kenya, where the UN has been for many years, and they talk about, and all these NGOs that are present here and trying to make life better, I think life is worse in Kenya than it ever used to be. You know, okay, yeah, we have the middle class now today, but how many of those middle class are really happy? You know, we have more disease than we ever had before. You know, but people are less connected than there used to be. And really, for me, when I think about it, village life is really the best life. And again, society and this globalist agenda and all of these things that have been pushed to tell you, oh, come and live in the city, life is better. Yeah, come and live in the city so you can buy more stuff. But it's like when you go to the village and you look at the people living in the village, they're happier than the people who are living in the cities. So who really has the better end of the deal? You know, there are so many things that are being pushed on us, because this digital, just like the Industrial Revolution was manipulated, this digital revolution has also been manipulated by the corporations that are sitting in Silicon Valley, that are developing this new technology, not questioning how this is going to affect human beings, how this is going to affect the culture, how this is going to affect the mindset. But they don't care, because they're only in it to make money. And this is the problem, where we live in this consumerist, you know, capitalist society, whereby everything is about, oh, let's make more money, but at the expense of what? At the expense of our humanity, at the expense of real, genuine human connections, at the expense of true happiness, of deep, meaningful connection, of deep, meaningful fulfillment in our everyday lives, because I'm pretty sure that if you go and ask 20 people if they are happy and fulfilled in their lives, they will most likely all tell you no. And that is because we are disconnected. And the main place that we are disconnected from is our soul. Because we have forgotten that we are soul beings having a human physical experience. But if we continue to only focus on the material, if we only focus on our bodies, if we only focus on what is it that I can have right now, how can I make more money? And that is the question that way too many people are asking. If we were all to stop and question, how can we be happier? How can we be more fulfilled? How can we bring more beauty into the world? How can we bring more connection into the world? How can we just make this world a more loving and beautiful place? The world would change instantaneously. But we are operating from the wrong questions. We are creating from the wrong standpoint, because we are all creating this reality. And it is by the things that we do, the thoughts that we have, the actions that we engage with, the decisions that we make at all moments in time, that is creating the world in which we live. But we have to start stepping out of this hive mindset, of this hive mentality, and start questioning. How can I make my life better? How can I make my life happier? And I can tell you this, yes, money certainly makes life easier. But are all the people who are multimillionaires and multi-billionaires, do you really think that they're happy? No. They're at a point where, a lot of these massive corporations that rule the world, they are destroying the lives of many, many people. And, when is enough enough? Because when does it stop? When do we end? The fact that, half the Amazon forest has been cut down in the name of, profits. This is totally destroying the ecosystem, totally destroying the lives of I don't know how many people who live in the Amazon, destroying cultures. So many things are being destroyed in the name of profit. And so we can question, do we want to be a part of that machine, or do we want to step off of that hamster wheel and start to create from a different vantage point, start to create things that matter, start to create things that are of value for generations to come? Because where we are going is not good. So stop to question where we're going, stop to question where you're going, stop to question what the larger consequences of your actions. Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm not really bothering anyone, but remember, the flaps of butterfly wings in the Amazon can cause a forest across the planet. And so, this is where quantum physics and quantum entanglement come into play. We are all quantumly entangled with each other. We are all affecting each other, whether we want to believe it or not. And to say, oh yeah, I'm just making this decision about me, will have no repercussions on everyone else, is just such a simplistic mindset to look at the world, because that is not true. We are all inherently connected. And everything that I do affects you, and everything that you do affects me. And that's what we talk about Ubuntu. I am because you are. But there is also negative Ubuntu, I guess we can say, in that all these negative decisions and negative actions that people are taking is affecting the whole world, because this is why the world is in the state of chaos and disarray that it is in. We all have a part to play. We are all equally to blame for what is happening in the world. And for us to say, oh, I play no part in this, I have nothing to do, is just so simplistic and so wrong. We all have to start taking more care of ourselves and the decisions that we are making and the choices that we're making and the things that we're choosing to back, because this is why the world is so fucked up. And so I just want you to take a moment here to question and to think about, really, are you just jumping onto the bandwagon of what everyone else is doing because it's the cool thing to do? Or are you doing these things because you genuinely know that they are going to improve your life? And it doesn't help that most of us are traumatized because we're constantly being told that we're not good enough and that we have to fit into these certain boxes in order to be accepted by society, and those people who don't fit into those boxes, well, they're basically ostracized, or they're cancelled, or they're told whatever. So we need to stop this hive mind mentality and start really paying attention to what it is that we're doing, what it is that we're engaging in. So to end here, I just wanted to pull some cards from the Angels of Abundance cards, just to give you a message, of positivity to end, because I know I asked a lot of difficult questions, and I know I've jumped around in a lot of topics here, but that's kind of how my mind works. And I just want to highlight how, even when we talk about the World Wide Web, since the creation of the internet, it's like we have all been pulled into this massive web, because all of these things so many things were created, new negative things were created as a result of the World Wide Web. And it's like various portals were created into negative things to exist that could never have existed before the internet was created. And so, we've all been entangled into this web of lies and deceit and darkness, and it is not the reality of what human life should be like. So let's see what messages the angels have for us to end here. Messages of guidance to help you as you move through this week. All right, let's see what we have here. So the first card we have here is visualize abundance in all forms. Yes, I've talked a lot about money today. And so, abundance comes in many different forms. It's not only money that allows us to get things done. It's also having abundant relationships, feeling abundant within yourself. It's not only money that allows us to move through this world. So it says, God gave you such great spiritual power that everything you visualize eventually becomes reality. Hold a steady vision of that which is beautiful, healthful, positive, and filled with blessings. And that is what you will experience. Yes, beautiful people. Remember, what we hold in our minds is what we create. So start thinking about what it is that you desire for your life. And most of the reasons why we want money is so that because we think we're going to be happier, we think we're going to be free. Well, just visualize yourself being happier, visualize yourself being free, and allow these things to guide you. And I know it sounds really crazy for me too when I started my spiritual journey, and I was not at all somebody who I was very sort of logical and very what you see is what you get. And so if somebody said, oh yeah, just visualize it and it will happen, it's crazy just how much this stuff is true. So start to visualize what it is that you deeply desire for your life and hold on to that and start taking actions, because when we hold what it is that we deeply desire, the universe will start to give you visions as to what it is, or ideas or inklings, or, information will come to you as to what it is that you need to do in order for these things that you desire to come into your life. And a lot of the time it's us individually who need to change certain beliefs that we hold. It's about changing our behaviors, changing the thoughts, because most of us are thinking negative thoughts most of the time. So start paying attention to your thoughts. The next card we have is pay yourself first. Yes, make yourself your most important financial obligation by setting aside a portion of your income every time you are paid. This loving form of self-care ensures that you'll have savings to invest in your present and your future. It's crazy how so many people, as soon as they're paid, the first thing they do is they go and they splurge their money on going to the club or going or whatever. And it's good to spend your money on yourself, but also start spending money on things that are going to advance you. It's crazy for me before, when I used to be a heavy drinker and a heavy partier. You know, once mid-month came, I would be like, oh my God, I have no more money. And I would question, oh, what am I doing with all my money? Well, it's because I was spending all of my money at the bar. And that was definitely not helping. And especially in these times where, you know, we're going through a lot of economic recession, it is important that we start to be more responsible as to how we are engaging with our finances. So the next card we have is cooperation instead of competition. So what's yours is yours and no one can take it from you. There's no need to compete as there's an abundance for all. You have complete access to unlimited abundance for yourself and to share with others. With cooperative partnership, you can accomplish anything. Yes, you know, we've been told to think that we live in a, you know, what has been engineered into most of us is scarcity, that there is not enough. In order for you to have, somebody else mustn't have. And that is the problem of the world in which we live, is that we believe that the only way for us to be abundance is for somebody else to lack. But that is not true. There is enough abundance to go around for everyone. There is no reason on this planet that anyone should be starving, because literally the Most High has provided for everything. There is more than enough space. There is more than enough abundance in nature. But because we have misunderstood nature and we take nature for granted, and even the fact that we are pillaging nature in the form of paper money when true abundance comes from nature, this is showing how the world is completely backwards and upside down. Power of prayer. Give this situation to God for uplifting and healing, and be open to miracles. Heaven's unlimited resources, love and answers are awaiting your prayers. Be sure to act upon the divine guidance God gives to you in response to your prayers. Yes, most people, they pray and they ask for help, but when you're told what you need to do, you're like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. And that's the problem, is right now everyone has enough spiritual knowledge, but what is lacking is taking action on the spiritual knowledge that we have. And last but not least, we have bountiful nature. Spending time in nature helps shift you to a higher vibration and reminds you of God's infinite abundance. Go outside and enjoy a walk or hike with your pet. Meditate beneath a tree, garden, sit under the stars, or do some other activity to connect with the limitless vastness. Yes, beautiful people, spending time in nature, which is natural, doing things that are natural is what we need to be doing. So start questioning what has been normalized in society that is not normal. The normalization of sex, the normalization of obesity, the normalization of promiscuity, the normalization of sharing false selves on social media. These things are not normal. We need to learn to be vulnerable once again. We need to learn how to connect more deeply with one another once again, and to just start to question, go deeper than what is shown to you at face value, because there are so many things that we are being shown that are not truly what they are. So I hope these messages have been helpful. I hope these messages have helped you to start thinking about certain things differently, start to question things a little bit differently. I send you much, much love on your journey. Share this video with anyone who you think might benefit from it. And in the meantime, I send you much love, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye for now.